Framed in.
Yeah, you're framed in.
Welcome back. I'm here with Jan Averwater, and we're doing more of our CSRM interviews with our board and former board and staff. And we have just completed the REACH Gathering 2016, and Jan was one of our co-conveners of our fitness ministry track there, which gives you all you need to know. Jan has been doing that for a while. And she was one of our foundational board members. You actually helped form it. Let's go back to that day, and then we'll come back to some of these other things. Jan, tell us what you remember about the forming of the CSRM board.
I remember being invited to a conference or a workshop down in Atlanta. I was working in fitness and sports ministry, primarily sports, and I wondered why we did not get more help with what we were trying to accomplish. So I went to that first conference, and as the conference was going on, those of us in church work kind of got together and said, man, there's no tracks that deal with our day-to-day stuff. There's things for parachurch, a lot of FCA, a lot of ISO, but we were kind of disappointed that there were not workshops to really help us get it off the ground.
That's right, and as at the same time the Southern Baptists were downsizing, and I remember Tim Adcox, who was on the original board with you and I, and he played a real pivotal role in bringing both of those groups together. Large Southern Baptist group, and then a large group that came from a lot of different denominations. And you came from the United Methodist Church. I was part of the Evangelical Friends. We had the lightning rod, Jim Riley, from the Presbyterian. We had a lot of different folks. We came together because we really believed that the local church had this great methodology to reach people through sports, recreation, and fitness ministries. And you came to that, and you won't brag on yourself, but I'll tell you what, there was hundreds of people, and Jan was one of, I think, 15 that were nominated for the board, and she was one of 9 that was actually voted on the board, which gives you an idea of how well she was thought of, and still is thought of today by people, that she was voted on that board. You played a role, I think, as maybe the secretary or treasurer in those early first couple years?
Yes, I came on as a secretary, and that's so not my personality. It was God saying, you're going to be outside the box and what you're usually used to doing. So I remember being on conference calls and taking notes, and then they'd ask me to comment, and I'm trying to take notes, and that was before technology where we were web.
We didn't have anything.
No, we weren't doing anything with a web. It was not a seminar. It was just talking on a telephone for 2 hours and taking notes. So God just had me in a different area than I normally am. But what a blessing it was for me to meet the people I did, to get more enforcement or more, I'm trying to think of the word, where you just feel like you're not alone anymore.
That's right.
You've got people that are in the same place you are. Barb Wagenfer and I were the 2 women on the board at the time, and boy, what a blessing she was, not just to me personally, but to my ministry and what I brought back to the Memphis area.
Well, we've often called Barb the queen. You must have been the princess.
Ooh, I like it.
And Barb means so much to all of us. And you know what? I don't even know if you know this, Jan, but Barb now is staff emeritus for CSRM. She just came on 2 months ago, and she's retired from her work after 20-some years at the Presbyterian Church. And she led, you and her have been the women that have been out in front leading in this movement, and we're glad that Barb's with us. And we have so much to, people say, Greg, you did this. You know what? I tell them all. Folks like you and Barb, CSRM would not exist without you guys. So
I do remember Jim Riley, I remember everybody, and Tim Adcox I got to see again at Reach. But I do remember in a meeting going, Greg, you're the one that needs to be head of this. You need to be the director. And I remember Greg looking at us going, One, I don't feel like I have what you need. He was so humble. And the other one was, and I've got so much going on, and all of us had younger kids, much younger kids then. But I remember him saying that, but it just was such a God-led thing that, Greg, you wound up taking it on, and I know it's got to be so hard on you sometimes. But when God calls you, you just got to open the door, and you got to be available to him.
And you know what, Jan? I think the reason that I was actually then voted on as a president and then as the first staff person was because there were Presbyterians and there were Baptists and there were Methodists, and nobody knew what an evangelical friend was, so I was safe territory. We actually wrote into the original bylaws that there cannot be more than 3 of any one denomination on the board, so it wouldn't become a Southern Baptist thing or United Methodist or whatever. And I think that was part of it too, that I was this unknown quantity. But thank you for that. And those really were some really halcyon days for us. And now when we think about it, today, here in Memphis, we spent all day with international folks, and they are planning their own summit in Africa. And to think, we had no more of an idea of that 30 years ago than probably anything. And I'm going to tell a funny story about you, because you talk about you were a secretary and you were a little bit out of your comfort zone. I think you left the board after the 3rd year, because we all got an extra year, and you were in the middle class, I think, which means you would have been there for 3 years. Yeah. And when you left the last board meeting, you handed us a black box. Now, the black box was about this big. Oh, yeah. You remember that thing?
I do.
And it had every single note of every single thing we had in CSRM. And you handed it to us. We could no more get in our stuff in that today. I mean, just think.
Yeah.
And you kept everything in that black box, and you handed it off. We actually kept that black box. It'll go in a vault someplace, and hey, that's where CSRM started all those years ago. But now bring us up to date. You have been doing your fitness ministry for how long?
I've been at Christ Methodist for 25 years and started fitness after 23. And very interestingly enough, we started a 5K run 24 years ago, and I got the idea from going to CSRM. I came back, I talked to our athletic chairman for our committee, and I said, we've had a fun run. I said, we need to do more with it. We need to raise money for other ministries in the Memphis area. So we have raised thousands of dollars, and it was all from a CSRM, and I think you ran that that conference title that time. But
isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so I've been doing fitness for the 23 years. A lot of classes I like to teach, but if I get a volunteer that comes in and says, I feel God's calling me to do this, I step aside, and it's now their ministry area. So the outreach that happens not just on the sports field, but also through fitness ministries, children's games, children's programs, what a difference it can make. And it's all because God's opening those doors and encouraging people to use these tools for Him.
And you really did model that. I remember a number of things that you came to those conferences and you went home and you made a difference. And Jan, there are thousands of people that have been impacted by your ministry. Thousands of people. And there are people that know Jesus today, are involved in churches, their families are made better because of what you've done all these years. And Jan and I don't see each other that often. And we communicate every now and then, but there is something in that bond of what we created back there together that no matter where we've gone since then, I always knew I could count on you. And this conference is a perfect example of that. Because we call Jan up and say, Jan, we have a need to get some homes for our internationals. Now, be honest, how many hours have you worked on this? Are you still married?
Yeah. The hardest thing was last week I was out of town with Chip at a conference that he goes to for music. And I've missed these conferences because of that. He was serving, And in serving, oh,
We're good. Keep going.
okay, and in serving, serving as his wife, as he was chairman, and I could not go to my conferences. So this year I was so excited. His was last week, ours was this past week. His was 2 weeks ago. But in doing so, when I was out of town with him, I was going back and forth with Jonathan, with other people, and the hosts, and we'd have someone picked up, then we'd lose someone. But you know what? It means nothing compared to the smiles that I saw when we walked in to Bellevue this week. And the people I've gotten to know, and I think our lives are so much richer. I think we get so much more out of it with these people coming in from around the world. Zaid I knew because I've met him before, but the new people I've met friends now that I hope next year I'll see again at a Reach conference.
And again, because of your help, we've been able to bring these folks, and they are going to go back into their countries. And again, because of your help, thousands of people. In fact, what came about out of this one is that Africa is going to have their own version of a Reach gathering, and you're part of that. And so, Jan, and people can probably see we've got a very nice setting here where it's your home. You've invited everybody out. You're having a big barbecue for everybody, and this is just indicative of this woman and how she thinks and who she is, and this is what makes the CSRM world go around. Jan, if people are thinking about getting involved in CSRM, why should they get involved?
You know, there's no place where you get other people to help you along the way, to help you understand, to also minister to you. Often we're ministering to everybody else. In my first CSRM conference, when I went home, I opened up my notebook, and in my notebook was John 3:16, and I was looking through my papers, and I saw the verse, God so loved the world, he gave his only son. And the man next to me said to me, you know, I see John 3:16 in the stadiums all the time. He said, what does it mean? Wow, what a opening that was. And that happens each and every day. So if you're thinking about CSRM or you're wanting to contact someone, please do, because it just opens doors and you have no idea what you're being called to do and what God's asking you to do. And I will never forget, you asked me to go back on the board because someone dropped off. And I have a statue in my office, a little thing of guys playing together. And I said, man, I'd like that to be about 3 feet and in front of the gym. So people just realize what a difference adults make for kids, but what a difference the kids come back and make in our lifetime. I have so many coaches that were players at one time and now they're doing it. And it's because of the ministry tools I got through CSRM.
Yeah. Well, Jan, thanks for everything. Most of all, thanks for who you are. You're an example to all of us. And thanks for joining us. It's been great to catch up with Jan here a little bit. And we really do encourage anybody that's watching this to get in touch with CSRM. Help your church get out there and reach people for the Lord and make a difference in this world. Thanks again, Jan.
Thank you.